She told me a story. It was the story of the day when she knew her life had changed again. It was the story about the day that her first grandchild was born. She went to the hospital, and as she drove to the hospital to see her daughter, her oldest daughter who had given birth, and her first grandbaby, as she drove down Monument Avenue towards St. Mary's Hospital, she was excited and overjoyed at the birth of a grandchild. But she also kept asking herself, how did I get so old? How did I become old enough to have a grandchild? How did my little girl, my firstborn daughter, grow up so quickly that now she's having children of her own? She walked into the room, and her daughter handed her first grandchild. And she held the baby and loved the baby and thanked God for the baby and was just thrilled with this new life that had come into the family. And the grandmother now looked at her daughter in the hospital bed and said, well, what name have you chosen? What name will we call this precious little child? And her daughter told her the name. But then almost immediately, her daughter asked her, the grandmother now, she said, and well, what are we going to call you from now on? What name will we call you? Apparently, this family hadn't talked through all of this stuff. What name will we call you grandmother? Will grandmom, mum, nanny, nona, meemaw, whatever it is? You know, different families have different names for what we're going to call grandmother. And she realized, from this day forward, I'm going to have a new name. Not only will this little baby call me Nona or Meemaw or whatever, but eventually everybody in that family was going to call her by that name. At least that's how it worked in my family. Everybody called the grandmothers Nanny and Mum. Her name had changed that day. This grandmother's name had changed. She realized she was entering into a new stage of her life. She had a new purpose in life. She wasn't the mother of this child. She was grandmother, and her role had changed. She could now spoil the child, get it all sugared up, and then hand it back to mom and dad to take home. Her role had changed, and her name had changed. In today's first reading, we hear about two people whose names change. If you've been coming to Daily Mass or reading the Daily Mass readings, you've been hearing about Abram and Sarai. Abram and Sarai, this married couple whom God called to set out on an adventure. This childless couple to whom God keeps promising children and grandchildren and descendants more numerous than the stars of the sky. Abram and Sarai. But as we hear in today's first reading, God changes their names. And from Abram to Abraham, from Sarai to Sarah. And this is not the only time in the Bible where God announces a change in names for someone. Actually, it happens with great consistency in the Old and the New Testament. When people have powerful encounters with God, it often includes a moment where God, or Jesus in the Gospels, changes their name. Why? Because once they have that powerful encounter with God, they've entered a new stage of their life, a new part of their journey, and most importantly, their purpose, their vocation has changed. You remember Simon Peter in the Gospels, remember him, the fisherman? And then Jesus announces, from now on, you are rock. Your name is no longer Simon, it's Peter, which means rock, or rocky, if you're from South Philly. You are, why the name change? Because Peter, you are now the rock on which I will build my church. His vocation has changed. He's no longer just a Galilean fisherman. He's the solid bedrock on which the Christian community will be built, the church. Peter's name changed because his vocation, his calling, his purpose had changed. The word Abram means, the name Abram means exalted father, would be a title of respect that you would call any Hebrew male of a certain age back then. To call him exalted father didn't imply that he would have children. It was just that he would be a respected man of a certain age. But Abraham means the respected father of many children. The childless one now has descendants, and they will be numerous. The same is with Sarai. Sarai means princess or female ruler. Sarah means the princess or female ruler of many descendants. Their names change because God has called them to become the parents of the people of Israel. They're not just to be successful shepherds and owners of sheep and flocks and tents. Their purpose in life is to be the parents of a nation. That's God's call in their life. They've entered into that new purpose in life, so their names change. You and I receive our names from our parents. Our parents picked our names for so many different reasons. I'm called Michael because that was the name of my great-grandfather on the Irish side of the family. If I had had an Italian side, maybe I'd be Michelangelo or something like that. But that's why my parents chose Michael. My middle name is Andrew because it's my father's middle name, and he was less creative. My mom said, you pick his middle name. He picked his own middle name. He did the same with my brother, too. Our parents choose our names for lots and lots of reasons, but then, at a certain point, our parents bring us to church, and we receive another name, and that name is Christian. At the moment of our baptism, every one of us becomes a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ. This is our calling. This is our vocation. This is our purpose in life, to live like people who bear the name of Christ. We literally bear that name from the moment water is poured on our heads and we are welcomed into the Christian community. This is our name, and this is our calling.